The picture-perfect June morning belied the turmoil and tension simmering just beneath Buckingham Palace's regal facade. As the iconic red-coated guards and immaculately groomed cavalry marched in crisp precision to take their places for the hallowed Trooping the Color ceremony, whispers and furtive glances swirled through the staging areas. Upstairs in the opulent private quarters, the calm before the storm's full fury had already been ruptured. Raised voices and the sharp staccato of objects clattering to the plush carpeting pierced the normally hushed corridors. To the few staffers scurrying about with last-minute preparations, the unmistakable timbre of Meghan Markle's grating alto could be heard rising in hysterical outrage. "How dare you attempt to dictate my presence at this utterly meaningless exercise of archaic colonialism," she shrieked from behind the heavy oak doors of the Duchess' chambers. "Have you and your emasculated sidekick truly gone completely mad with delusions of grandeur?" Their Royal Highnesses William and Kate stood rigid as dueling shockwaves of indignation and disbelief washed over them from Meghan's virulent diatribe. "She simply can't be permitted to proceed with this reprehensible tantrum and breach of decorum," Prince William stated in a low, measured cadence that nevertheless betrayed a simmering undercurrent of barely contained outrage. "This kind of inflammatory disruption casts an indelible stain upon the integrity of my grandmother's reign." Beside him, Kate's porcelain features had gone taut as a bowstring. Her emerald eyes flashed with the condemnatory fire usually reserved only for the most brazen commoners in her presence. "Yes, flagrantly disrespecting the sanctity of this realm's oldest military tradition is the height of disgraceful contempt," she intoned in clipped, aristocratic cadence. A muscle worked in her delicately sculpted jaw as she glared daggers at the recalcitrant Duchess door. The Queen herself personally afforded the great honor of Meghan's inclusion out of good faith and family affection. William nodded grimly, squaring his shoulders as he prepared to face the intractable virago who defiantly inserted herself into the once pristine House of Windsor like a malignant thorn. "Indeed, the sovereign's word is sacrosanct, and will be upheld by whatever exhaustive means prove necessary to instill that from this moment forward." With that, he rapped 3 perfunctory knuckles against the ornately carved oak panels before sweeping into the suite with Kate close behind. The ricocheting shrieks and clattering that instantly poured forth clearly depicted the powder keg they'd ventured into. "You insignificant genetic gambits utterly unworthy of your so-called birthright," Meghan howled from amidst a scene of utter bedlam. Priceless antique vases and porcelain figurines lay shattered across every surrounding surface along with appended furnishings and scattered vestments. The Duchess herself stood coiled and heaving in the maelstrom's epicenter, having evidently swept aside all attempts by the helpless attendants to placate her fury. Her normally affected glamour poise had utterly dissolved, leaving a twisted harridan snarling through rattled gasps as spittle frothed over her purpled lips. "You pathetic, bloodline relics beholden to the senile delusions of a withered old bigot on a threadbare throne of genocide and oppression. You dare to dictate the terms by which my radiant glory graces your masturbatory pantomime of fated imperialist superiority?" Chunks of broken ceramics went sailing in a wide radius around her as William and Kate absorbed the shockwave of derision with stony expressions. To their credit, they weathered the hysteria's onslaught with aristocratic stoicism and icily clenched rebukes. "That will be quite enough of such unconscionably vile blasphemy and disrespect, Meghan," William cut in with a steely bite that brooked no further dissent. "Your refusal to uphold even the barest minimum of dignity expected of those granted the privileges of a royal participant is utterly unacceptable." Kate's own visage had settled into an imperious mask of reproach usually reserved only for the greatest scandals and disgraces. "Indeed, the brazenly hostile rejection of our sovereign matriarch's esteemed hospitality and esteem is tantamount to the most reprehensible insult and betrayal imaginable." Her words sliced through the tension like an ornamental saber's edge. "If these noble courtesies and obligations no longer fulfill you, perhaps it is time you remedied that misalignment swiftly and permanently." For an endless, breathless moment, the furious shrillness strangling the chamber stilled into dead silence. For the first time in recent memory, Meghan Markle seemed to have been momentarily struck into shocked muteness. Then, like a viper roused from its slumber and battle-ready to strike its mortal coil, her viperous grimace contorted into a mask of purest virulent hatred and disgust. "Your transparently meager implied intimidation is as laughable as this entire charade of regressive barbarism," she spat with caustic venom dripping from every syllable. I should have purged the foul stain of you all from my light years ago." With that, a series of rapid strides brought her mere inches from Kate's unflinching person. For a fleeting instant, the demented spark of violence seemed to glimmer in Meghan's pupils before just as swiftly guttering back to raging impotence. With an inarticulate scream of thwarted malice, she spun away in a cloud of chiffon tempest. Slamming through the suite's oaken door and tearing down the corridor like a feral whirlwind bent on fury, destruction, and escape in equal measure. William regained his senses to call for the royal guards. But by the time thundering jackboots marshaled throughout the scarlet-clad phalanx had mobilized and began swarming the palace's every ingress and egress, their quarry had already vanished. Like a nightmarish banshee of tabloid controversy and disrepute set loose to stalk the unsuspecting masses once more. Her unending tantrum would reverberate and tarnish the entire sacrosanct day's ceremonies with the stain of madness. For Prince William and his devoted wife Kate, the entire calamitous precedent foreshadowed even darker storms gathering on their family's horizon. The first volleys had been fired in what was swiftly escalating into an existential conflict pitting the crown's very legacy against the menace of Meghan's insatiable spite and persecution complex. As the chilling echoes of her screeching fury still rang through their thoughts, they could only steel themselves for whatever unfathomable new depths of sabotage and defilement she would plumb next.